Well, I've got at least all the same. Yeah, I see. When you put together parts and pieces, you ain't kidding. I look fly and I bring the chair, just pile it up in the chair. How are you doing? I'm doing great. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. That's a language of wicked, I think. You know, teach you how to be possible.
This didn't just happen. That clock is that.
I know you do.
I still want you to think I didn't.
No, I know.
I recognize you, right? It's all right. That's cool.
I know. I'll look at it, turn it off, turn it back on.
Yeah, but it's not.
That's last month.
He's back.
I just moved this information. And you've been good. I just tried to.
You got what you need. Let's check it. Make sure I wasn't around you. Donny, you're fine. Totally okay, dude. Good.
And if anyone wants to sign up for public comment, please come down here and do so. Okay, folks. Thanks for being here tonight. We have a pretty good crowd, and that's good. I will now call our February 13th, 2018 meeting to order. If everyone please stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we will observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, board, first thing on our agenda is the agenda approval. Are there any changes, additions, or deletions to the agenda?
Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda as printed and posted.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Ginger to approve the agenda. Second by Commissioner Rice. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Passed. Second item, approval of January 9th, 2018 special and regular meeting minutes. You have that. Look over there. If there are any questions or concerns concerning the minutes as far as you have before us?
Having previously reviewed the minutes, I move that they be approved as submitted.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Wechtel, second by Commissioner Gentry to the approval of the January 9th, 2018 minutes. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. Third item is our public comment. We have quite a few. There is a three-minute time limit on this for each person. First one is Miss Barbara Zimmerman. And then if you come to the podium, please state your name, please.
Hi, I'm Barbara Zimmerman. I live in the Revere community in the Laurel section of the county. Can you hear me? Okay. My concern is about the litter in the county, the litter along the roadsides. And I see it because I drive, and I'm sure everybody who drives sees it a lot. My concern is that a lot of the roads that were being picked up by the prison system, it's my understanding that they have ended that program. And certain roads are just covered. I mean, ditch line over the side and litter. We over in Revere, we adopt the highway. We have it adopted from one year. That's about a 7 or 8 mile section of road, and we've adopted it from one end to the other. We pick it up 4 times a year. And some of us get out and walk our dogs and pick up stuff in the meantime. Those of us who are retired and have time to do that. And you can really see a difference. You can see a difference in the adopt a highway roads as opposed to the ones that are no longer being cleaned up. So some of the worst roads in my community, because I'm driving over them all the time to get in and out of Revere, is Lonesome Mountain, which is one of the most beautiful roads in the county. in terms of views. And also Walnut Mountain, coming up Walnut Creek, going over Walnut Mountain, coming into Revere, it's just terrible. And that is a beautiful section of highway, but it's just covered in litter. And I know that the prisoners used to pick that up, and also Lonesome Mountain, and that's why it's getting so bad. I also know that it's my understanding that the Department of Transportation at the state level has contracted with contractors, out-of-state contractors. I think these big companies, I think the one that the state has contracted with is a company out of California. They subcontract then to groups, and there's a group located in Conover that's picking up, that's actually contracted to pick up 2570 and 1923. They pick up the major roads, the interstates and the major highways, but they don't pick up the state roads. So my concern is that our county is just getting trashed, and it's really looking bad. And I think it hurts the county in so many ways. I think it hurts us in terms of economic development. You know, I think it hurts. We bill ourselves as the jewel of the Blue Ridge, and you know, our tourism industry it really brings in a lot of money to the county. It's brought in a tremendous amount of business to Hot Springs. And, you know, I think that I'm probably getting close to my limit, but
Yes, you are.
so I'll wrap this up. You know, what I would like to see is I would ask the commissioners if they would appoint some kind of working group with representation from different agencies that would meet on a regular basis to see if they could come up with some solutions. You know, that hopefully would involve a lot of volunteers eventually to try to work to solve this problem, because the prisoners aren't going to pick it up for us anymore. And it doesn't look like anybody else is going to. So I appreciate your hearing my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Rachel Scarlett, I think it is.
Good try.
I tried.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm Rochelle Skurlick, and you may remember me from last year when I was asking all kinds of questions and trying to get an education about community buildings, both the Rock Building on Bailey Street in Mars Hill and the one on the island. And I just wanted to take a couple minutes tonight to share my 2 cents on the meeting you had earlier with the alderman. First of all, I wanted to thank you so much for doing that, for coming together, county with town. I like to see people working together like that to try to get on the same page and find solutions to whatever issues come up. It's good as a citizen to see y'all doing that, so thank you. And I just wanted to say, I understand that the Mars Hill building has, you know, had a bid accepted on it, and y'all will be discussing that later. And I just wanted to say, I did get an education about the limits of budget and whatnot in making these buildings available for public use and whatnot. So I understand why you might have to go ahead and sell them to private interests like the Marshall High School was. And obviously that turned into a beautiful thing. But I did want to just state the obvious again and say that if we go ahead and sell these things, we'll not get it back. And the one on the island, for example, is one of very few properties there on the island. And the downtown area is itself very small. And I just think that as a citizen, I've been involved in groups and events that need public spaces, community spaces, both outdoor and indoor. And I would just love to see a way for the aldermen and commissioners to, I don't know, maybe work some magic and find a way to preserve such spaces for community use, because they're sorely needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher Brown.
Good evening, y'all.
Chris. What's up, Chris?
How's it going? I just want to echo a lot of what Rochelle said. First and foremost, say it was fantastic to see the town and you all sitting together talking about an issue that's important to all of us. I want to make it clear that I'm speaking to you tonight as a member of the Madison County community and a taxpayer in that community, and also a taxpayer in the town of Marshall, and a member of that community. And understand, y'all know what I do. I understand that you have you're a separate body, and you have your own budget to address, and you need to do that. But there are many of us out there that are Madison County residents and municipal town residents also. And when it comes down to it, you're talking about us. And I just encourage you all to, I think Mr. Gentry mentioned this at the end of the meeting, outside of the meeting, but it would be great to have an opportunity for the public to get involved in this conversation at some point, outside of public comment, and with both bodies present would be fantastic. So I encourage y'all to consider that and keep working together, the two bodies. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Fraud channel.
Good evening. Thanks for letting me talk. I want to keep this kind of echoing thing going. I was really impressed with the three speakers before me. With regard to Barbara, her comments about litter, I couldn't agree more with. I live on the corner of Bailey's Branch and Bear Creek, and it's busy. And I've called DOT. I'm going to adopt that highway from the corner there into town. It's 4 miles of trash. The Craggy Correctional Facility, didn't discontinue it. The General Assembly stopped funding it. So a little more info, I think, would help. How to get them, maybe give a call to the General Assembly and say that was a good program. Those guys were efficient, effective. I gave them thumbs up and honks every time. Michelle and Chris bring up good points. It was great to see the town of Marshall and the county commissioners come together on an important issue. When I first moved here, the first thing I did was go to the park. I have 2 kids. Tolly's 6, he's at Brush Creek. Ada's 4, she's at the preschool at the high school. I live 4 miles out of town, but there's a lot of love for Marshall and that park. It needs to stay a park. After the survey's done, may I please encourage you to reparcel the land so that the buildings stay separate, park remains a park, the greens are the greens and the trees, etc. I encourage the sale to honestly just encourage to occur between both parties. And I just came to that recently. I thought, what private individual would want to invest over $200,000 in a dilapidated building with a roof that always holds water, broken windows, graffiti, bathrooms that I don't even want to discuss, that I've been locked out of, my mom included. My mom buys soap for the bathrooms at the Marshall bathrooms because they don't have soap, cold water, no hot. It needs improvement. It's a good park. It needs enhancement. The town and the county coming together could turn that into a gem. I know it has a wastewater treatment plant adjacent to it, but the rest could be a gem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mm-hmm. Scott Green.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for the time up here.
Thanks, Scott.
Fix that city forever. I'm here, Scott Green, president of the Youth League Sports in Madison County. I've been in for about 5 years now, and I caught wind of this about the island a couple years ago that it was potentially happening. I have two points that I want to ask here. Is I understand that we might sell this property, and that's I get how it's an historical piece. I played ball there when I was young, and I get that. That's great. It's its own little thing, but it's an island, you know. I went to school on an island. We flooded and we cleaned it up and we went back to school the next week. But what's our plan for those 200 to 300 kids that I deal with when something happens to that ball field, and the gym that they practice in for basketball and sometimes softball, travel ball even? I hope there's been something looked at there for that. I haven't heard that, But I hope that if it does come to sell, I've got roughly 200 kids that use just those two things that I've got to find a spot for, and we're already strapped for it anyway, trying to find a spot for these kids to practice ball. And that's just baseball, let alone the gym. Now that gym, my second part of this question is, if you're just trying to sell, Norris, you made the comment earlier that we've kind of let it go down, and instead of letting it go down, put it in somebody's hands, fix it. My dad fixed that gym about 25 years ago, putting it all to the floor. If that'll solve me from having to sell the gym, I can get a crew out there tomorrow to start on it. And I hope that that's an option, because I would love to put effort into that. My dad did it. I feel kind of proud doing the same thing 20, 25 years later and preserving that gym, because just like the gentleman said, it was a gym. It was a great gym. We played every game there until I graduated high school with the youth league. I don't know what happened after that, what's went downhill, but I think a few things could have been done years ago to solve that, but it hasn't. But I don't want to lose that gym, and I don't want to lose the ball field, especially because we don't have a lot of accommodations for these kids right now, and I don't want them on the street doing something different. I just saw something the other day about all these, the meth problems and parking lots at Walmart stuff. And I don't want our kids going that direction. I'm here for a little while. My kid's still young. He's just 7, and I want to stay with the youth league as long as they allow me to. And I want to do everything I can for the youth league kids. I told somebody yesterday, 75% of my life right now is dedicated to youth league, and I love it, and I want to continue helping them, and I hope we can work with them to do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Callie Wellendorf.
Thank you for letting me speak with you tonight. We were here last year and the year before for Expo Madison, and we're at it again this year. It will be March 17th at the Chambers Gym at Marshall University, who has been so gracious to give us that space. We have some folks that are coming back to exhibit in, and some new folks on board, so that's going to be wonderful. It is from 11 to 3. The idea behind the expo is to put businesses and community together so that both learn of each other's resources. So community can use those resources and businesses can say exactly what they have to offer. We are also on Friday night doing a business to business session for exhibitors, so they have a chance to network, and they have a chance to have a mini presentation with Sarah Lynn Collins, who is a seasoned consultant. So she's going to give us some great information about how to best present yourself on the expo floor the next day. We also this year are allowing selling, so people can sell product. We have some wonderful nonprofits. CHC is going to be back again. Habitats, we have nonprofits and businesses. So we would just ask that you all spread the word about Expo Madison, March 17th, and that you all come as well and enjoy a wonderful day over at Chambers Gym.
Thank you.
Thank you. You said 11 to 3, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Emily Patrick.
Hi, my name is Emily Patrick, and Josh Focus and I are part of the jail team, and we also own a house in Marshall and a farm in Walnut where we grow 2 acres of flowers. So we are very excited to be part of Madison County in a bunch of different ways. But I wanted to talk to you about the island because we love it so much, and sort of take on the land and the building as 2 separate issues. We've known about the potential sale of the gym for a long time, and we've spent a lot of time dreaming about what we would do if we got our hands on that one too, but our project is big enough for now. But we were surprised to find out about the potential for the sale of the land. And so what I wanted to say to you is that we feel very certain that the sale of that parkland would be a net negative economic impact for Madison County. And the reason why I say that is because every time we bring someone to town, and we bring people to town all the time, our house is way too big for 2 people, We bought it for company. So we take them there and we say, look at this incredible resource. It's the center of our town. It's the jewel of our town. Don't you want to build a house here and grow the tax base and create jobs? And so it really is a selling tool, and we are happy to be salespeople. We also have a kickball game there every year for adults and children. This year is going to be my team's year if anybody wants to sign up. It's going to be great. Yeah, so we would really like you to offer the town first right of refusal on that land. And in the event that the town is unable to make that purchase, we would like you to provide space for a public citizen group to come forward. I think that I feel confident in saying we could come up with what you were asking for, although we hope you would make us a very good deal. I did want to talk about the gym for just a second because I think, the option of repair or sell is what I've heard on the table. I would actually like to encourage you to think about two things. The first is what would happen to the gym in the event that you put it on the market and it doesn't sell. The community center lease is going to run out. So how can we continue to keep that space active in the meantime? And I think maybe there's a more clear system of management that could be put in place to help provide citizen access to a roof over people's heads, because I hear all the time that people just want a room in Marshall and they don't know about the gym. So maybe the town can manage that. Maybe it's just like more newspaper stuff. We have a fantastic newspaper. Maybe you need like a little corner in there. I don't know. The other option though, I'm almost done, is demolition. And if you can't repair, I would actually like to see demolition discussed as a possibility. I know it's expensive to do that, but if that land could become part of the park instead of having a deteriorating building sitting there, maybe that is an option that we should be looking at. I hear we're going to get a great reclaimed materials to store it. I could probably use some of that beautiful wood floor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is applause allowed?
That is the last question. Yeah. Sandy Stevens?
I don't have a 3-minute limit, right? Since I'm not
Maybe
part of
we'll.
public comment. Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to come and present the work of the Appalachian Barn Alliance for the past year. You have in your packet already, Amanda's put our annual report, and I would like to go over some of the highlights. For those of you who don't know what the Appalachian Barn Alliance is, we formed 5 years ago to find a way to preserve the barns that are the symbol of our agricultural heritage. And in the last 5 years, we have had a grant every single year, which I'm really pleased about. And last year, we received one from the Richard Reynolds and Marie Reynolds, RJ Reynolds Tobacco Foundation. And we're really happy about that. We celebrated that at the end of the year. The other thing that we celebrated was a step toward our next phase, which is establishing a heritage farmstead here. And so I have given you a copy of our newsletter. You have it in front of you. And Norris Gentry was there to represent you all at a celebration we had with the Elaine Ray and David Thomas family, who gave us this historic flue-cured barn. They gave it to us probably a year and a half ago, and it took us that long to find a place to store it because everybody's got stuff in their barns. So we needed to find a place, and we finally did. So there are a lot of pictures of the ceremony, the very moving ceremony, and we are really happy that in addition to implements and farm tools, we now have an actual deconstructed barn that will form the basis for that heritage farmstead. We also ended up our year with a recognition by Preservation North Carolina at their annual meeting, the Gertrude Caraway Award of Merit for our work. So there's an article about that in here, and we have now state recognition for what we're doing at a very high level. So we're pleased about that. The other thing that we completed this year was our 5th township. So you have a copy of the self-guided brochure. We're doing that township by township, and what we have is a little bit of history about the Mars Hill Township and the directions and a little bit of information about 8 of the 12 barns that Taylor Barnhill, our researcher, documented. We choose the barns that are safest to see from the road to put those on our either downloadable from the website or our printed brochure. And we distribute this in the Welcome Center, the North Carolina Welcome Center, plus our 2 visitor centers, the one in Hot Springs and also the one in Mars Hill, which is the Madison County Visitor Center. We also continue to have our fundraising events. Barn Day is coming up in May the 19th, and I've already had an inquiry from somebody who lives in Highlands, and we get people from all over that come to see our barns and to learn about Madison County, so we're pretty proud of that. Barn Month is May. I am pushing to make Madison County the Barn County, and we've added a couple of new things. The Arts Council, we partner with several people, and the Arts Council is going to have their Barns of Madison County exhibit there again. Zuma will have a historic exhibit that we had last year, and I'm also working on a partnership with the Depot to roll out an oral history project. So we're catching the stories. We realize that the heart and soul of a heritage farmstead is going to be a museum where there are recordings that people can listen to about the stories and hear those things, because that is what is probably the most important thing that we are capturing. So I've written a couple of grants that include getting some professional audio equipment, and because the Depot is the best gathering place to get some of the old timers from Madison County, we're going to use that as a advertising venue once a month, starting in May, Barn Month, and only doing it in the warm months, and find a way to capture some of those stories from some of the people who attend, and also get the word out that we're doing this and will come out to you. We bring in money from memberships and donations, and I'm proud to report that our money increased by 12% from the previous year. A lot of you out there are donating to us in many ways, whether it's your time, your stories about your barns, or your money, and we do appreciate that. We're going to continue that work this next year. We're working more on the establishment of a heritage farmstead. Our board has gone out to 9 different heritage farmsteads in this general southeast area to get an idea of how to set this up. We've met with stakeholders, the lead people in the towns, the county, and Mars Hill University, the school system, the Hoffman Foundation, and talked to them about our ideas and just kind of started the conversation. So we're going to keep doing that, and we're going to document another township. We've got Marshall on the radar. Taylor Barnhill is working on Marshall now, and I'll continue to apply for grants and continue to solicit our donations, and love what we're doing, and got a great board and a great advisory committee and a great community that is very supportive of what we're doing. And I appreciate your support, and I appreciate the support of the TDA that also contributes some money to keep us going.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you've got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. So you can find the information about us at AppalachianBarns.org. Thank you.
When we were at the Rotary dinner earlier in the year, you mentioned you were looking for a chicken house. Did you find
You
it?
were trying to get me a chicken house to store that barn. We found an empty barn.
Okay.
It was a neighbor of ours who hasn't had it long enough to put stuff
Fill it
in
up.
it.
Good enough. Very good.
Yes.
I found one for you. I was
Oh, you
going to tell you about
did?
it. So that's
Okay.
all. No worries.
If we've got another barn donated, I'm coming back to that.
Good enough.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Thank you.
Melanie.
Good evening. Madison County Public Libraries request permission to apply for the 2018-2019 Library Services and Technology Act grant program. In collaboration with the Madison County School System, the Madison County Public Libraries will develop 2 distinct after-school programs that will be offered to help 56 struggling students achieve higher educational attainment through one-on-one and small group tutoring, which includes STEAM enrichment activities. The program will target students who are identified by their elementary schools for being below grade level or who are at risk of falling below grade level. The grant amount requested is $13,617 with a 10% match of $1,513. Total amount of the grant is $15,130. The 10% matching fund of the $1,513 would be funded in the library's 2018-2019 fiscal budget with support from the Friends of the Library.
She is asking permission.
Yeah, she did.
We need a
This has been reviewed and it's a great project and I want to commend Melanie and her team for all the work they do, but particularly all the work they do that is beneficial to our school system. I'm going to talk later about funding for the school and what we do, and that's important, but there are programs our library is offering that are very good programs that assist our school system as well. And an after-school program is something that is a really good thing. So I appreciate you working with them and appreciate them being willing to work with you to get it done.
We need a motion. Okay. Mr. Chairman, I would move that we grant permission for the library to apply for the LSTA grant.
Second.
Proposed.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Gentry for the permission to apply for the grant as stated, and second by Commissioner Wickel. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, well, I've been here about 35 minutes and I've heard folks passionately speak on clean roadways, green spaces, parks, youth sports, farms, and libraries. And I'm here to speak passionately about taxes.
Tell us how we're going to pay for all that stuff.
Exactly. You're way ahead of me. These are all great ideas. But the county is only funded, or its primary source of funding is its tax base. So these are all great ideas, but it can only be funded if we pay your taxes and if we collect delinquent taxes. So folks, I guess last year's have been paid. Pay your taxes. If you know of someone who's not paid their taxes, encourage them to pay their taxes and give these folks up here a good hand for trying to collect those delinquent taxes. So in that regard, I have given you our report for this month. Delinquent-wise, Ms. Ray gave me an update. We have payment agreements, so there's approximately $4,000 that needs to be added to our income for January. We collected approximately $22,800 for the month of January. And as I've told you, in November and December and January, it's a slow period for us because that's when most people are paying their taxes, and the tax office has been understaffed and very busy. And they've also been implementing their new software. Laurie and I spoke last week. She has sent to me 12 new files for collections. We'll get to work on those. We've also spoke about sending out letters to encourage folks to get their taxes paid, so we do not have to implement forced collection, which also includes the payment of cost of collection. If you look in your update for your collections, you will note that for the years 2008 through 2011, we're almost or exceeded 100% on what has been budgeted for collections for this fiscal year. 2012, 2013 need work. We are just a little bit behind in those 2 years. 2014 and 15, we're almost right on budget. 2016, which is by far the largest amount, we're over 90% on that. So, you know, there's nothing surprising in that. It's just numbers that lets us know that we've got work to do, and we anticipate that. And we'll get those things done. So, any questions?
Thank you, Donny.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Brooke Smith. You are up.
Evening.
Good evening.
I am here to talk to you about a multitude of personnel things we've got going on. So we'll start, first, just give you a little update on the benefit side of things. So one of the richest benefits that we offer to all of our full-time employees is our employee health benefits. It's an exceptionally low deductible, no matter no matter what time period we're talking about, but especially in 2018, it's unheard of. We pay 100% of the premium for employee only. So we're just talking about a really good Cadillac plan of health insurance that we offer our employees. And so one of the ways that we're able to kind of offer this is we have to surround ourselves with a team of people. We have to have a broker. And because our insurance is self-funded, we also have to have a third-party administrator. So we're not just the HR department, me and Marla can't just go out and do all this on our own. So we've had our broker for many, many years, and he's let us know that he's retiring at the end of this insurance contract year, which ends at the end of May. So in order to not have any lapse in services, not that the health insurance would have lapsed, everyone needs to understand that, but it's more for the internal side. We went ahead and in January advertised for requests for proposals for both broker services and third-party administrator services, TPA. So the thing that was most important, that was most pressing to address due to the retiring of our current broker was broker services. So that's the one that we opened up first, and I assembled a team and a scorecard, and everyone that was on the team read the proposals and did a scorecard, turned it in, and then we called in the person and they met with us in person. So what you have in front of you, or what I'm asking you to do tonight, is to allow our county manager to offer a contract for these services to the chosen brokerage, which is Insurance Services of Asheville. Our attorney has reviewed the contract. He sent me back an addendum, which basically protects us. It just says that we have the right to cancel a contract anytime we feel like canceling the contract and there will be no penalty to us. So we'll add that sucker onto the back of the contract. But basically what I'm really excited about with this is to have a team of people at a really reasonable cost who are going to come to me quarterly with data about our plan and help me problem solve through it. Here's areas where we're seeing more claims, and here's what we do to address that. Because we're the ones paying the claims. It's not some faceless company, it's us. So we need to take control of it. We need to take ownership of it. And the first step is for the HR department to recognize that and to work with a team of people that are going to help us. So I'm really excited about that. Y'all have any questions?
No. I don't have any questions. No? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we authorize our county manager and HR director to negotiate and execute contract with Insurance Services of Asheville as written.
Okay. I have a motion by Commissioner Gentry for the approval for the continuation to the sign and execute contract for Booker Services. Yeah. I have a second by Commissioner Rice. All those in favor, raise your right hand.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke.
Okay, and now we'll jump into our hires. Told you all a couple of months ago, we had a lot. Thanks for applying. So the first thing that we've got is the health department. We've talked about it before. They were awarded the really big drug-free communities grant. Really excited about it. It's a 5-year grant. If they meet certain benchmarks, they can continue their funding. So one of the key pieces of that grant is to work with our youth. And so they're hiring an MSAC youth coordinator. MSAC is Madison Substance Abuse Coalition youth coordinator. So the interview team interviewed several candidates, and they are recommending that Courtney Brown, yes, sorry, for the role of the MSAC youth coordinator.
Mr. Chair, I move that we hire Courtney Brown as, or that we approve the health department hiring Courtney Brown as MSAC youth coordinator.
Mr. Chairman, I will second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Wechtel and second by Commissioner Gentry for the hiring of Courtney Brown, Health Department. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay.
So the second one that we've got is the position of animal control officer at our animal shelter. So that position became vacant in November. It was advertised, and after completing interviews, the interview team is recommending the promotion of current animal shelter worker Stephen Rector to animal control officer. Mr. Rector has been with the shelter for a little over 2 years, and he's proven to be a dedicated employee with many skills that'll be an asset to the shelter and the animal control department.
Any questions? Discussion? No?
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend the employment of Stephen Rector to animal control officer.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Gentry, second by Commissioner Wechtel for the hiring of Stephen Rector for our animal control officer. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay.
The third, we have a position in the emergency services department for 911 telecommunicator. This position answers the 911 phone lines and provides emergency medical instructions to callers and dispatches first responders and EMS. After completing interviews, the interview team is recommending Haley Rogers for the position of 911 telecommunicator. She has experience in the emergency services sector, and the team believes that this will lessen the learning curve and the amount of training needed.
Okay. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we hire Haley Rogers for the position of 911 telecommunicator.
I'll second that. And we have a motion by Commissioner Rice, second by Commissioner Brigman for the hiring of Haley Rogers for the 911 telecommunicator. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay.
Number 4. We've had in our library department, a regular part-time circulation assistant position has become available, and the library director would like to promote a current library sub into that position. So, and that's Jacob Ray. This Mr. Ray has been with the library for several months and is familiar with library operations. And this move fits in with what we've been trying to do in other departments of promoting within, where it makes sense and where it's beneficial to both the county and the department.
Okay. Any discussion on this? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I move that we promote Jacob Ray to part-time circulation assistant with the Madison County Library System.
Okay. Chair, I will second that motion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Wechtel, second by Commissioner Gentry for the hiring part-time circulation assistant for the library, Jacob Ray. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay.
Number 5. In the tax collector's office, the position of tax clerk has become available.
After completing interviews, the interview team is recommending Mike Ledford for the position of tax clerk. Mr. Ledford has many years of experience in the tax office and is very familiar with the operations of the department. He is also experienced in the current software, meaning the only training that will need to take place will be for the new software, which all of the staff in that department will be completing over the next year.
Any question? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I move that we hire Mike Ledford for the position of tax clerk in the tax office.
Mr. Chair, I will second that motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Rice, second by Commissioner Gentry for the hiring of Mike Ledford in the tax collector's office. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Okay.
Right along. The facility worker one position in the maintenance department was created as a means to address the backlog of maintenance work that needs to be completed, as well as multiple projects that we've got coming up. After completing interviews, the interview team is recommending Jesse Ledford for the position of facility worker one. Mr. Ledford has experience in welding, construction, and basic maintenance.
Mr. Chair, I would recommend Mr. Jesse Ledford for the position of facilities worker one.
Okay. I'll second that. We have a motion by Commissioner Gentry, second by Commissioner Brigman for the employment for maintenance department facility worker one for Jesse Ledford. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay.
That last one. The agriculture agent position in the Cooperative Extension Office was vacated on December 31st, 2017. After that, North Carolina State University advertised the position and offered interviews to the 3 applicants. The Cooperative Extension Office works as a partnership between local government and the university system. And so of those applicants, Rebecca Bradley is being recommended for the position of agricultural agent. Ms. Bradley has the required education and experience in the field, making her the ideal candidate.
Discussion.
I move that we appoint her to the Ag Extension Agent. That's his job.
Second. Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Briggs, second by Commissioner Rice for the hiring of Rebecca Bradley for the position as the North Carolina Cooperative Extension Agent. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you, Brooke.
Okay. Rhea. Yeah.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hello.
Good evening, Rhea.
Hello.
I'm here with numbers. You have in front of you the January 2018 financial report. I'll give you a few important things to note. I'm going to start with the bank balance. Our current unrestricted and unassigned bank balance is about $8 million. Of that number, 1.9 million of that belongs to the landfill, and about just over 100,000 belongs to 911. The other 6 million is general fund money. I'm going to incorporate that part into our future statements.
Good.
So for January, we run in total general fund revenues of 2.4 million. That brings us to 15.5 million year to date. Expenses of 1.7 million, and year to date at 12 million. So our net on that is $750,000 of, I don't want to call it profit because it's not profit, but we're sitting at a good $750,000 right now. For the month of January, that's 3.4 million for the year. As we know, we have collected the majority of our revenues from the taxes at this point, so we will use that 3.4 million to get us through the rest of the year.
Okay. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I've been looking at this for some time and I've never asked the question.
That's okay.
We got a fund here called the Drug Seizure Fund.
Mm-hmm. What is that?
What is that? And
That's
where
a
do we
really
keep
good
those
question.
drugs?
That is.
You need some?
Probably.
That is restricted money, I believe, that the sheriff's department gets, and he can only use it on certain things. I'm not exactly sure what that list entails. Forrest might be able to give us detail, but I'm more than happy to ask the
I
sheriff for
can
that.
tell you about that. I know about that if you want me to answer.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
That's a North Carolina drug tax. And any amount of drugs that they seize, money, they can, bank accounts, whatever, cars, jewelry, whatever sold, the county gets back 75% to the sheriff's department. And this is used by the sheriff's department. Do whatever he wants to do. But that's where the drug.
So it's not restricted, sheriff can use it at his discretion?
Right,
But it has to be used in the church.
right. Used in the sheriff's department. Well, that's the way it used to be unless the laws changed. It could be, these things change.
Thank you, Bill.
As now, that's the way it stands.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
I do have one, go ahead. Do you have something
I
else?
say it does come through the North Carolina Department of Revenue, where tax comes from.
I do have one correction on the vendor list, the list of checks. I had a math moment on page 1 for Bypass Automotive. The maintenance portion of that should be $455.12.
I'm sorry, what was that amount?
The maintenance portion of the Bypass Automotive breakout should be $455.12.
Okay. All right.
Also, along with this, I would like to mention that as of today, all January rent revenues have been received.
Which means we're a month behind and they had to be called today.
That's right. I made a phone call this morning and the check showed up for January. February is still owed for the same person. So.
Thank you for following.
So Rhea, that landfill fund
Mhm.
that you mentioned, we got about 1.9 million in that.
Yes, sir.
According to our report here, revenue over expenses year to date is about $506,000.
Are you looking at the landfill side?
Yes.
I'm on the right page. Okay.
So am I correct in assuming that at the end of this fiscal year, whatever that number is, that those monies will then be added to the 1.9 million, or is that 506,000 already in the 1.9?
It's already in there.
Okay,
That's already in there.
so that's a rolling number.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. That's just the physical cash in the bank account on January 31st.
Thank you.
Any other questions regarding financials or the checklist?
And one thing about the landfill, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Ivy River Partners, if it hasn't already run out, got another grant to do the electronics amnesty program. So if you have electronics to get rid of, don't throw them in the river. Take them to the landfill. Until the money runs out, you can dispose of them for free. But the key is don't throw them in the river. End of story anytime, please. Thank you. My public service announcement for tonight.
I look forward to those every meeting. You have one.
And they can drop them off at your house too, Matt. We'll help you.
That's right. That's right. If we have to.
Next, I would like to present for you gentlemen, budget amendment number 8. There's a decent amount of stuff on here, and I do, Forrest asked me to calculate the net effect on the budget for the total budget amendment. So the net effect of all these adjustments is an overall reduction in revenues and expenses by $8,214. So we are reducing our total budget by just over $8,000.
Better than adding to it.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve of budget amendment 8.
Okay. So we have a motion by Commissioner Gentry, second by Commissioner Rice for the approval of the budget amendment 8 All those in favor, raise your
Any
right hand.
discussion, please?
Please.
Oh, discussion first. Sure. The timber receipts,
Yes, sir.
is that the figure that came in is that figure continues to decline at a pretty rapid rate. Is this the annual receipt or is this just a partial?
I spoke with the gentleman on the phone, that's why I didn't hear. We didn't currently have this in our budget. He thought it was gonna be the same as we got last year, which was 12,000. And this is only for timber receipts, so this money has to go to the school system.
Right. But I guess my question is what we've received, is that all we're going to receive for the
We have
year?
not received this amount yet.
Okay,
He
so this
said
is projected.
what would be coming in March.
Okay. And if I remember right, that's about half of what we got last year, is it not?
I think that's right, I'd have to check.
According to him, this is the
Yes,
exact same
fine.
amount we got last year, but it may be less than the year before.
Okay.
So I think it had declined and then we declined on out to zero. That was kind of our expectation. So it's coming in the same as last year. It's a little better than we expected, but I think at one point we get 20, 30,000 or more from that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Carry on, guys.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
There are several, this budget amendment moves funds, but put explanations in there. It moves funds to cover a used vehicle for the sheriff that was purchased a few weeks ago. Y'all were consulting about that and agreed to it. The budget amendment formalizes that and makes the sheriff's budget whole, uses capital outlay funds that y'all had set aside.
Has he got that vehicle yet?
So.
Okay. All right. Any more discussion? We have a motion by Commissioner Gentry, second by Commissioner Rice for the budget amendment number 8. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen. The next thing I have for you is the January 2018 tax releases and refunds.
Okay. Any discussion or questions for Rhea on the property releases and refunds? I hear a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay. I have a motion from Commissioner Rice to approve the property releases and refunds January 2018. Second.
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Gentry. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay.
The last thing I have for you, gentlemen, is the Vaya Health Finance Report. This is for the period ending December 31st, so that would be their second quarter, I believe.
What exactly is this telling us, Rhea? I mean, I'm not really sure why we get this report. Can you please?
Because they make us
Okay.
get the report. I believe there's something when they switched the mental health and it went out of the state town, came into the county, and I think from there it's.
We provide,
There's a
yeah,
little more.
basically, we provide them $30,000 a year. And as a result, they provide a
Financial.
quarterly financial report to each county. They have quarterly meetings of a county commissioner advisory board. I think they send out emails to the chair, myself. Those are always on the same Tuesday night as our work sessions. But I've been able to go to the last 2, and I'm gonna go to the one in February for those meetings to hear what's going on with that LME. But it's, there is not much input that we have, to be honest. They go out of their way to offer activities that appear to provide chances for input, but that's all it is.
Forrest, how is it decided on how much the county gets?
I don't know.
I was looking at these amounts, there's big differences in surrounding counties.
I don't think it's just population driven, but I don't know for sure.
I don't think so either. Okay.
I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's a combination of population and available facilities and things of that nature.
Makes sense.
If I recall correctly, that was a topic of discussion in a Land to Sky meeting.
Yeah.
I was at recently.
Okay. Thank you, Rhea.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Our county manager, Forrest.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Commissioners, and I have just passed to you a copy of my annual report to you for the year 2017. I hope to be able to present that in January, but I had a little sickness there in December. Glad I got it out of the way because I think it's immune to the flu. It's my guess. We'll see. The report you have, which I will not go through everything. I hope you'll read it, but a couple of things that I'll highlight about 2017. Madison County saw payoff for several efforts that have been underway for several years, including the 44 jobs expansion announcement, advanced super abrasives in Mars Hill, an increase in the county's fund balance as we continue to try to rebuild our reserves, a continued increase in the property tax collection rate, and that improvement to the county's financial position has allowed us to start to look at capital outlay and long-term planning for our facilities and vehicle purchases over a 5-year period. That ensures that every board that adopts a budget in the future is sort of looking a little farther in advance so that people realize that the extra money that's brought in, the reserves that are built up, there's often a need for that in the long run as a county. Our growing and changing county faces several challenges and opportunities that continue to be at the forefront in 2018, including access to high-speed internet for citizens and businesses, a lack of affordable workforce housing, water and sewer infrastructure needs in our municipalities, the need for additional workforce development through our public schools, community colleges, and employers. Madison County is also not immune to the nationwide opioid epidemic, which impacts the labor pool in our region and increases demands on our public safety, public health, and judicial systems. These increasing challenges and some exciting opportunities must be addressed in the context of limited county resources. County must budget critically and carefully in order to maintain adequate staffing levels and avoid spreading county employees and infrastructure too thin. This requires continued careful evaluation of the level of all county services and a determination by you as a board regarding the most important priorities. This report just highlights some of the countywide efforts that you all have focused on throughout the year. I also have, they're not enclosed, but I will send them to you, reports from each department that show a few of the highlights of work that has been going on in their departments. I will say that this county is blessed to have people who are working, whether they're paid by the county, whether they're serving on this board, whether they're volunteer board members or community members in any capacity who are working to solve problems in our county. And I think the quality of public comment earlier tonight, reasoning about situations and understanding the issues involved, says a lot about the county. And it's one of the reasons that I like local government so much better than state and federal, because people, I think, understand it and know that we're all sort of in this working together on how all these things work. So that's really good. A couple of things on education. The board continued efforts in 2017 to increase the public schools appropriation. Between current expense and school construction funds, you contribute an additional $1,093,000 to Madison County Public Schools. That includes 4042 sales tax funds for capital outlay. That
is a total increase in local funding for per pupil for school's current expense, which pays for operating expenses and supplies and those sorts of things at the local school system. That's a 22% increase over the past 5 years. And local funding per pupil has increased by 34% in that same time frame. Have information in there about where Madison County ranks in our per pupil expenditure, local funding per student. That's a helpful number to see, but it doesn't tell everything. We have moved from 93rd in the state out of 100 counties to 85th in the past 4 or 5 years. And while that is nothing to really brag about just yet, you have to make slow progress on that. And this board and the board actually started in 2014 to really contribute additional funds to the school system. It takes time because we got to 93rd because of years of funding at a certain level, and previous boards made the best decisions they could with what they had. If we wanted to move to the statewide average, just for example, of $1,563 per student, it would require an additional $916,000 in county funds, which is about a 4.5 cent property tax increase. So that puts that in perspective. With those limited funds available for current expense, you have looked at using 4042 funds to pay for expenses the school system had been covering out of operating, specifically an energy savings loan. You contributed $355,000 in 4042 funds that freed up that amount of money for the school system to use from their operating expense. That's where they found the money to do the teacher supplement year before last. So with additional sales tax funds, the 4042 funds have come in, and you were able to appropriate an additional $400,000 of that in the fall. You still have sufficient 4042 reserves to pay for the annual payment on the school construction program, which is almost finished. The major projects are finished. The new early college and the media center at Brush Creek were all, media center was finished about a year ago, early college in the summer. So those efforts are paying off. And the fact that you had 4042 funds to spend that had been saved over the years is really a testament to the work of those who came before you. So all of these things do build up for positive in the future. On economic development and infrastructure, I mentioned the advanced super abrasives announcement in Mars Hill. That's the result of 5 years worth of work by the town, the county, the school system, our community colleges, the state, and others. There will be 44 jobs expanding with an average of $33,000 per year in pay, an $18 million expansion. These manufacturing jobs are critical to Madison County, and they're exactly what we need to grow our economic base. We worked in the past with the company to secure a state grant to extend last mile internet access to the site, and it was really good to work through this project. This is the first property tax incentive that Madison County has ever entered into with the company. And it shows that the county is willing to compete for economic development opportunities in our region and states. And that's something that you all should be very proud of for doing for our county. When we look at the jobs announcements that occur in other communities, some of them much bigger than ours, they almost always involve these local incentives. So it's important that we be willing to participate in that. This follows a 26 job expansion at Peerless Blowers in Hot Springs that was announced in 2015 as a result of the county's recruitment efforts and a building reuse grant that was secured through the Department of Commerce at that time with a county match. And that project is still underway. With transportation, we have 3 projects that have been funded, one of which we're still have to do a little work on. But the first is the improvement to 2570 from the high school to middle school. We've seen very well all last year. The engineering surveying work is already underway. That's a $30.2 million project that will add some turn lanes, maybe straighten a couple of curves, widen the shoulders. It will not be 4-laning the road, but it will be making those improvements through there. Construction is programmed in the State Transportation Improvement Program to begin in 2023. And that is a project, the state has funded it, but it was not, there was a project on I-40 in Asheville that was going to get funded. And we sort of organized everybody, particularly the school system, to really bombard DOT with emails and justify the public comment for why we needed this. And probably didn't hurt that Asheville was probably protesting whatever they wanted to do out there. So, responding to repeated accidents involving large trucks on 208 and responding to an inquiry to us, Representative Michelle Presnell was able to secure $3.5 million for safety improvements to that stretch of road from 2570 to 212. We're very grateful for that. That's going to be a good project. It's going to be a relatively minor project, but some minor work can really improve safety, widening some of those curves, trying to get a little more shoulder width. It's an expensive stretch of road to work with because you've got the river right there. You've got cliffs on the other side, but we think there'll be improvements there, and that construction will take place this year. Also, in 2014 and 2015, the county worked with the town of Mars Hill, Land of Sky RPO, to apply for funds to the Appalachian Regional Commission for the completion of Crossroads Parkway, which is the frontage road that runs from exit 9 in Mars Hill almost back to exit 11. So you've got that short stretch of road there that really should have been connected when they widened the interstate 20-some years ago. The town applied for that and did receive a grant. When engineering was completed, it came in well over budget. So that has been resubmitted by the town, and we have been talking with representatives in Raleigh and at DOT at the high levels. I know it's been to the secretary level, working through to make sure that that funding does not go away. We have the grant funding in place. We just need the additional state funds, and we're hearing some good word there, and we'll stay active on seeing that through. Like most rural counties, Madison County suffers from a lack of reliable and affordable high-speed internet to many of our residents. Worked with the state broadband office since 2015, and the county undertook a countywide survey of internet service demand in 2016 and held a meeting that November with area providers in order to share the results of the survey and encourage additional investment on the part of those providers. Extending fiber to each home in Madison County is estimated to be very expensive, upwards of $20 million. Providers are understandably hesitant to undertake the cost of construction for extending this fiber, especially since not everybody on a road they go up is going to subscribe, and because you've got a lot of people in areas that live a mile or two from the road, and you still have to get there. French Broad Electric should be commended for expanding its fiber services in some of our more densely populated areas, but they're still quite rural. French Broad has also invested years ago in a good backbone network that goes to the Spring Creek, Old Spring Creek School, goes to the old Laurel School. So you have fiber going into those communities, which is great because that's an expensive build. It's also very expensive to get from there to homes, but we're much farther ahead than we would had they not done that. The challenge is the cost of getting that to those last places, and Madison County doesn't have $20 million to pay for a provider to extend internet everywhere in the county, and it doesn't appear likely that a provider is going to want to invest that sort of money on their own. County should consider using its economic development funds to match grant applications to the state and federal governments to provide larger amounts of money for projects that would then be implemented by a provider through an RFP process. We plan to apply for a grant to the Appalachian Regional Commission here in a few months to fund just this sort of effort, though it's likely that even their maximum grant amount will only fund part of what we need. There are larger federal grant sources that are available only to providers, but the requirement to serve every home, including going up mile-long driveways as well as paperwork, makes these programs difficult and undesirable for these providers, especially in rural areas. Our county planner, Sarah Nichols, has been working diligently in 2017 and 2018 on inventorying all the vertical assets that we have in the county that can be used for other internet technologies such as wireless that may be implemented more quickly than fiber to the home. The State Broadband Office has been very complimentary of Madison County's work here and say that we're ahead of several rural counties in having that information together. It's an expensive project. We're a big county, and this is a challenge in every rural community throughout the country. And it's going to have to be done in phases, and it's going to take some time to do it. And it's not something that the commissioners can just wave their wand and do. $900,000 is a 4-cent tax increase. You can imagine what 20 million would be. Future development, economic growth, of course, is critical for Madison County. Same with economic development. We have made great strides in funding staff who can go to trade shows, who can meet with businesses, who can follow up on requests. We would not have seen the advanced super-abrasives deal completed without someone paid by the county who was able to work through that process. Sarah spent hours on that, hours of days on that project for months. We've spent hours on the Peerless project in Hot Springs. But we have to remember that we have a shortage of flat land in the mountains. We have to have qualified workforce for people who are looking to open here. And we have to constantly work as a county to try to address those issues over time. That's also a long game of investing on the front end. It's not just saying Amazon would want you to come here and bring your however many people you're going to bring, all that sort of thing. So it's good to keep working with that, and we're making very good progress. On public health and safety, population growth and change and the opioid epidemic are challenging several of our departments in public health, social services, judicials, and public safety. It's easy to see the human impact of drug addiction because all of us know someone who's been touched by that and been impacted by it. Long-term effects of the drug problem weaken our workforce and our community systems. And we're fortunate to have a number of people in Madison County who are working to address this issue in our community. The Madison Substance Awareness Coalition, or MSAC, is funded through grant funding and through our health department, and has been working to improve collaboration among community partners such as the county, law enforcement, judicial system, public schools, churches, healthcare providers, and others in an effort to address issues surrounding substance use in Madison County. In 2017, the group worked with each police department and the sheriff's office on 3 drug take-back events, distribution of medication lock boxes throughout the community, and the sponsorship of multiple community forums on substance use. In October, the health department was awarded a federal drug-free communities grant worth $125,000 per year for 5 years. The grant was used by MSAC to fund additional community education, including the funding for a coordinator for the teen task force at Madison Middle School, who you all voted to hire tonight. That coordinator will work with middle school personnel to provide evidence-based education in middle school age students and empower those students to lead the effort to combat substance use, which so often starts with that age group. MSAC and others in the community are working together to identify gaps in mental health and substance use services, provide peer support for those who are struggling with addiction and as well as their family members, and to identify the missing pieces to bring additional services to Madison County, many of which don't require additional funding. We also have an impact to our county budget. In addition to the human impact we see, our inmate medical budget at the sheriff's office is much higher than it was this time last year. Our jail that was built to house federal and state inmates to bring in revenue to offset its cost still has some of those, but there are many more local inmates because we see the arrest reports and we have to house them first, and we should house them. We're paying to house them there, and we're not receiving federal money to pay for that. That's beyond our control, but it does have a significant impact on us. Social workers, a number of our foster care cases and child welfare complaints, 80-90% of them involve some sort of substance abuse issue. That's a huge issue for our county, and we're going to need to continue to support going forward for community education efforts and work to identify potential diversion efforts such as a drug court to help reduce the rate of increase in county costs related to the opioid epidemic. Madison County does benefit from being located near a more populous county and have an interstate running through, but that also brings a number of people through our county who bring issues with it, whether it's speeding or more significant crimes. And that creates a hardship on law enforcement and particularly our judicial system. Our sheriff's office is doing a great job enforcing the law, but there will come a time in the next few years when they're going to need additional manpower to meet the constantly changing needs of the county. The sheriff has not requested additional personnel at this point, but we should work with him to plan for the future by first looking within his existing budget and then looking at what additional resources the county should provide. There is an immediate challenge in keeping detention officers at the jail, and I expect this year's budget will attempt to address salaries in that area. The county's been supportive of our sheriff's office, funding the purchase of 10 newer used patrol vehicles in the past 3 fiscal years to replace worn-out vehicles that had fallen off the replacement schedule during the recession, and working to fund increased medical costs for inmates that were unpredictable and generally beyond anyone's control. The sheriff and his staff work to save the county money and not waste anything, but it's a big department and there are a lot of needs. Sheriff has worked very hard to reduce his comp time liability, which has really helped keep his budget on target for the current year. You all did provide an additional $170,000 in funding for the sheriff's department this year over last year, and you funded a mid-year increase through budget amendments of over $300,000 last year. So that's good support for our sheriff's department, and we'll continue to work with him as he works with us very well, and we appreciate that, to make sure he has the resources he needs to continue to ensure the safety of our citizens. The county is thriving because of the dedicated work of our more than 280 full and part-time employees. As a small county with limited revenues, we continue to work to combine employee compensation and benefits to keep the county competitive with other employers and respect the work of our employees. Employee compensation is increased for a variety of reasons, and Madison County must balance all those reasons when allocating limited funds in every budget. The budget for 17-18 allocated an additional $223,000 for salary increases, including a $500 per employee cost of living adjustment. This $500 was chosen rather than a percentage increase across the board because we knew the $500 would be more beneficial to those who make a lower wage, where a percentage increase would have really minimized the impact to them. The county's minimum starting wage increased from $7.25 to $8.39 per hour in the past 3 years, and the county's average hourly wage increased by 3.9% in 2017 to $16.43 an hour. I mentioned we pieced together health insurance, and Brooke mentioned before our Cadillac plan. The county has historically lacked funds to provide consistent cost of living adjustments, but we've made up for that with benefits to our employees. You have a chart there that shows the average premium for enrolled employee in North Carolina for employer-provided health insurance, which averages $1,189 for the employee. Madison County's average for the employee and their coverage is $0. Madison County is providing $8,522 for every enrolled employee, full-time employee, to cover low deductible, even though the deductible increased slightly, it's still a low deductible 80/20 plan. Current year's budget allocated an additional $160,000 to continue that funding. That was $710 per employee. The total the county spends on all of those 220 approximately full-time employees is $1,875,000. Providing those additional funds maintains that premium-free plan. With the decades-long increases in cost of health care and insurance nationwide, we should anticipate those costs to continue to increase in the coming years for Madison County. And the county is going to have to work hard to control costs and prioritize the most important benefits to employees in the future, while looking at how benefits fit with employee salaries and total compensation. Employee workload is an important issue that you face when you're trying to stretch dollars farther in any organization. And we need to be mindful in Madison County of what that can do. You can be providing adequate compensation to an employee and doing all the right things. But if they're overworked and they can't keep up and they're taking on more as you spread the department thin, you end up running the risk of losing your best. In a county our size, you're always going to have sort of variations in where work is assigned. You're going to have a few who don't have enough to work on. Department heads have to be more mindful of that. But we also need to be mindful of those who agree to take on more and end up getting burned out in the process. I have notes here about the Employee Assistance Network with your Brooks report, 60 enrollments last year for online courses focused on constructive confrontation skills, generational differences at work, managing successful change and transition, all that brought on by hiring the Human Resources Director. A random drug testing policy was implemented last year. We've all long time been doing pre-employment screening. We now have random drug testing for all safety sensitive positions. And you've altered the hiring process, as Brooke came up tonight. All positions are going through a committee filled with the department head, another employee or two within the department, depending on the position, maybe a member of the public, and is providing more input into that process, and they submit their recommendations to you. Long-term budget, as a result of conservatively estimating revenues and expenses over the past 3 years and increasing property tax collection, we were able to add to the county's fund balance at the end of the year. You see some charts here that you can look over at your convenience, but year-end fund balance available increased significantly. That includes 4042 funds, and that's prior to the additional $400,000 appropriation that's approved. The Local Government Commission requires each local government to maintain a fund balance available of at least 8% of their general net expenditures. As a percentage of our net expenditures, Madison County's fund balance is 21.4%, which exceeds that minimum, but that compares to an average of 32.01% for counties in our population group. The LGC requirement represents just 1 month of operating expenses, so a county is wise to exceed that significantly. Because fund balance available includes 4042 funds, it's good to look at unassigned fund balance, and these are the terms that the Local Government Commission uses. Unassigned fund balance does not include those 4042 funds. It's actually the money that's available for you to appropriate as needed. At the end of fiscal year 16-17, revenues exceeded expenditures by $864,000. So you were able to contribute that $864,000 to that unassigned fund balance, which brings us up to the highest level it's been since fiscal year ending in 2014. That's a good increase, but it's important to note that just as quickly as it increases, you can have a bad budget year that wipes it out. And that's what happened in 14. Money came in very well, and then a budget was presented to the board that increased revenues beyond expectation. They were never going to be met. They weren't met. And we ended up at the end of 2015 going whole and erasing all of those gains, and we've still not gotten completely back. But we'll just have to keep working on it. That number represents 10% of the county's expenditures. The county's current year property tax collection rate was 95.88% last year. That's up almost 0.5% from the previous year, and up a combined 5.8% from FY 2011-2012. That increase over the past 5 years in the percentage of people who pay their taxes has led to an increase in revenue for the current year of $607,000. That's the equivalent of a 3-cent property tax increase, but you all have been able to leave everyone's property taxes at the same level because a larger share of the people who owe taxes are paying. The state average for counties our size is 97.5%, so we're a little bit low. We are implementing the new tax software that will replace our 30-year-old system that's out of date that should help increase productivity and continue to increase that rate. Capital outlay, due to the increasing amount of money available to the county, it's important to look at all of the deferred maintenance needs, both vehicles and buildings. With a capital outlay plan that projects expenses for the needs over the next 5 years, that enables current and future commissioners and county managers to better plan their budgets each year and leads to more effective purchasing decisions that are not made in emergency situations. That backlog is worse because commissioners in 09-12, because they were in the midst of recession, had to cut back on those sorts of things in order to protect people. We're still catching up, and many governments are. Worked with Rhea last year to develop an outline for a plan through fiscal year 2023. That outline includes funds for complete renovation of the courthouse, replacement of aging county vehicles on regular rotation, renovation expenses for the office space, the county administration building, construction of a new EMS space, expansion of the animal shelter, renovation of the senior center, and the purchase of new voting equipment. That draft plan, which you discussed in December at your work session, totals $2.6 million over 6 years, and that number is anticipated to grow significantly with input from department heads and with formal construction estimates. Creating the plan is step one, funding it is step two, and you all took step two first by allocating $50,000 in your budget for capital outlay. That is a very good step, and we need to continue to do that as money is saved on the debt payments for the jail and cooperative extension. That money can be added to capital outlay as property is sold that is above projected budget. That money can be added to capital outlay. County's in the process of marketing that surplus property. That'll help for a few years of the plan, but additional steps will need to be needed based on economic growth and potential increased revenue to make county property and equipment are taken care of. Work's completed on the new heating and cooling system for the courthouse following several years of work that had taken place on cosmetic and structural issues. The renovation is important and it needs to happen and needs to continue. And like I said, it's addressed in the capital outlay plan, but it does not address issues with court space that are a result of our county's growing population. By population alone, we're a distant second in our judicial district to Watauga County, but for court volume, we rival them because of the interstate and other issues in the county. We're the only county in that 5-county district that's operating with just one courtroom. Judges and court officials have been patient. They're having to schedule court at cooperative extension or at the jail. They're willing to do that on a temporary basis, but it's not a long-term solution. County leadership was wise in 2004 and 2005 when they used the proceeds of the state's buyout of the primary school building on the island. They got $1 million for it at that time to purchase the old Engle Shopping Center that now serves our county administration building. That purchase was made without having to use county funds, and we've all benefited from that in the years since. We would benefit potentially from additional consolidation of offices as well as potential space for additional court use. Construction meets code there, but it's clearly very temporary. They built it in just a week to get everybody moved up there. So we're going to have to include in our capital outlay plan some renovation there. And we're likely to need some space that's currently occupied by existing commercial tenants elsewhere in the shopping center within the next 2 years. And we need to consider that, the impact on county space when we're looking at lease renewals. So you all have worked the past 3 years to increase revenues from uncollected property taxes and through the sale of property, while working hard to control expenses through position eliminations and combinations and other methods. Department heads have worked to eliminate unnecessary purchases, and our employees are working to save money. Our county department heads and employees should be commended for those efforts and how they look after the public's money because they realize that they are taxpayers as well. These practices should continue even when we're flush with cash, because there's always an opportunity to improve efficiency and because time changes the demands and requirements of the job or department. There are significant unmet basic needs with facilities and employee workload and compensation, as well as increased costs of some services in areas such as health insurance, EMS, and utilities that can't be covered over a multi-year period without adjusting the level of service provided to the public or looking at additional revenue sources. County's going to have to take a serious look in the next 2 to 3 years at where we spend money on services and entire programs if we want what's most important to the board, or we run the risk of stretching all departments and services too thin and making them inefficient. Any questions on that?
Very well done, Forrest. I'll say. Thank you. Very well done.
But you had time limit on it.
Plus.
Commissioner Briggs was having a fit down there. I don't have anything else to update you on that. I don't have anything in the manager update except surplus property, because it connects back with that. Amanda has worked and we've gone live with Gov Deals for some of our surplus vehicles and that sort of thing. And one of the first major items we put on there was the Unimog that was purchased for the landfill back in 2014. That just went up today, and it's up to $5,000. A lot of bids coming in, but they're going in $25 increments, and it's a 2-week period, so that's a really good start there. And then you have some other properties that are in the upset process, including Wolf Ridge Lot 7 and 12. Current bid's up to $7,000. Upset period ends on the 19th. We have Scenic Wolf Lots 101 and 101B. It's up to $7,000. The upset period ends on March 19th. Wolf Laurel Estates Lot 554 is up to $2,500. That just got upset. The upset period begins tomorrow and goes through February 26th. So that's some things that are out there but not come to you yet. And then there are some surplus property items in front of you now for your consideration. Start with Bear River Lot 56. You have a $3,000 final bid that has been advertised and the period is expired. And this is final acceptance of that offer. It's Alvin Buckner Jr. who has made that bid. It's 1.1 acres in Bear River, and we're paying HOA fees as long as we own that.
Any discussion on that?
I think we ought to accept it. I move that we accept it.
Second.
We have any more discussion? No. We have a motion by Commissioner Briggs, second by Commissioner Wechtel. This is for the Bear River Lot 56 to accept the final bid of $3,000. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay.
Thank you all. And by selling that, you get that. First of all, we eliminate paying homeowners association fees, but you also get it back on the tax rolls. As long as the county owns it, we're getting no revenue off it. If someone buys it, particularly if they improve it, that will increase revenue coming to the county. Many of these properties were acquired through delinquent tax foreclosures. The Rock Building, which is next, was not. That building, as you know, the offer was withdrawn by the previous bidder. A new bidder submitted an offer for the same amount of $73,550. That has been advertised for upset and expired with no upsets. So you have a $73,000 final offer for you to accept or decline. This will begin a 90-day due diligence period, working through the town with rezoning, which that process seems to be going along okay, and also have to work with the school system on an access issue that hopefully they'll work with us on, because I know they don't want the building. So interested in any action y'all have on that one.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept the bid of $73,550.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Gentry, second by Commissioner Rice on the acceptance of the $73,550 final bid for the
Commissioner Briggs.
And second by Commissioner Briggs also.
I didn't hear it.
For the sale of the Rock Building, or known as the old school in Mars Hill. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay.
Next, you have an offer on Breakaway property, $205,000 bid that you all had accepted back in December. It's been advertised for upset, no upset bids received. This will begin the 90-day due diligence period for that property.
Move that we approve the sale.
Second.
Third. Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Wachtel, second by Commissioner Gentry for the approval of the final bid for the Breakaway property of $205,000. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay.
Next, you have two new bids on the same property. They came in basically right at the same time. So I don't know which one you're gonna want to do, but you have 1.27 acres in Hot Springs. You have one bid for $400 and one bid for $2,200.
And with the acceptance of this bid, this will start the upset process. Correct?
It was listed with a realtor. This went very quickly. That was what we had listed it for. And that person made that offer. The $400 came through outside the realtor. The $2,200 came through the realtor. So that will begin the upset 10-day period.
Where is that at? Do we know where that's at?
It's out there close to the water tank and dump out there.
I move that we accept this offer and begin the upset bid process.
The $2,200.
$2,200, but specifically, I move that we accept the $2,200 bid. Do we need to officially reject the $400 bid, Mr. Attorney? Okay. I move then that we accept the $2,200 bid on this parcel in Hot Springs and begin the upset bid process at this time.
Okay. So I have a motion by Commissioner Wexler, second by Commissioner Rice for the acceptance of the $2,200 bid on property located in Hot Springs. All those in favor, raise your right hand.
Everybody's in a selling mood tonight, Forrest. We got anything else we can get rid of? Keep rolling the page.
Next, you have board appointments. You have a vacancy on the Board of Health, 2-year appointment, and a recommendation by the Board of Health for Diana Rogers, who's a longtime former employee of the health department.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept the recommendation for Diana Rogers.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Gentry for the acceptance of Diane Rogers for the Board of Health.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wexler. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay.
Have a vacancy on the Board of Adjustment. Mr. Rick Sharp has resigned and moving out of the state. No recommendation from staff on that.
Mr. Chair, I recommend that I nominate Rick Molland for that position.
Rick.
Mr. Chair, I will second that motion.
We have a nomination by Commissioner Wexler, second by Commissioner Gentry for Rick Mullen for the Board of Adjustment. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, gentlemen.
Board.
Is that it for us?
Thank y'all. Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Very good. Any other business for the board?
Mr. Chairman, I recommend that this meeting adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Gentry, second by Commissioner Rice. All those in favor, raise your right hand. We are adjourned.
And thanks for coming and encourage more people to come. We got at least 100 vacant seats.
Really good for us.
Good meeting, sir.
Time that Forrest talked,
Sue! Come see me. I saw you sitting over there. I didn't get to see you.
You get all you want.